Hello and welcome to this course on investor metrics and growth KPI. My name is Osmond Desilva and I'm the founder of Tech Citizen Entrepreneurship Academy. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, please type in yes in the chat box, please. Yes, okay. What we'll do, we'll be waiting for more people to join us. So just for the next 1 or 2 minutes, can you just tell us whatever information you want about yourself, maybe your name, your company, if you want to, where you're from in London or the UK or the world. And you can also put in your LinkedIn web link as well, any information that can help people connect. We'll just start in a couple of minutes, waiting for more people to join us. You all can, in the chat box, just put in some information about yourself, where you're from, your company name, your LinkedIn profile, if you want an email address. Yes, just put in some information about yourself. David is from West London, I can see. I'm from Coulsdon in South London. Is anyone from outside the UK? We're just waiting for a couple of minutes for more people to join us before we actually start the event. If you want, you can just put some information about yourself, where you are from, or your LinkedIn profile. Neural is from North London and is a medtech startup. Okay. This course is about investor metrics and KPIs, and I hope everyone can hear me very clearly, wherever you are. The important thing is, investors, from their point of view, this is a very important topic, because when they meet a startup or founder at any stage, in the back of the mind, always what is ringing in an investor's mind is, what is the metrics, what it is, what it was, what it will be. And in this section, in this seminar, you learn a lot of the different types of metrics and KPIs. Please do not get overwhelmed by the information, because this is not something you can just go and learn in 1 hour. I'm trying to give you a lot of value here. And because it is quite a comprehensive thing, you can apply it for any stage of any company in any sort of vertical. This is why there's a lot of information. So let's kick it off. And of course, more people will join us. You can just put some information about yourself in the chat box so people will know where you're from or what company you are, or your LinkedIn profile. Hello and welcome to this course on investor metrics and KPIs. My name is Osmond Desilva and I'm the founder of Tech Citizen Entrepreneurship Academy based in London.
Section 1, Course Introduction. The main objectives of this course are: A, understanding the principles of metrics and KPIs. You need to have a good understanding of metrics and KPIs. This includes knowing about their applications and use in business. B, to know the requirements of investors. Next, you must know what the investors are looking for in the metrics and the KPIs. You cannot make any assumptions. Also, investors have a high selection bar for their investments. C, to start implementing correct procedures and processes. You will need to use the tools and techniques in order to extract the required information from a system. This will need good documentation of procedures and principles. Who is this course for? This course is for entrepreneurs, people that have an existing business and are looking to raise investment, startup founders, that is anyone who is about to start a business or a startup and would like to require early stage financing. And finally, for professionals and potential entrants, for professionals in full-time employment, but who are in the process of starting their own business.
First question, I want to make it a bit interactive, question is, what department do you think metrics and KPI belong to? It doesn't matter even if you're a two-man or three-man company. See the chat box. Can you just put in what department you think the KPI would belong to? I'll give you a few seconds to just let me see what you'll think. Can you put your answer in the chat box? What department does the KPI and metrics belong to? Yeah. Oops. I don't know what oops is. Operations, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, fine. Satish Gekwad said operations. I was wondering what ops is. Anyone else? What department do you think we should put the whole of the KPIs metrics in? Anyone wants to have a guess? Okay. Now it will depend, of course, from company to company, how many staff you'll have, what your expertise is, how big you are, where you're based. It depends on many things. But what I like to think that it actually goes in marketing, because you'll see a lot of these KPI metrics are to do with things like sales, the customers, how many customers you're getting back, how many customers you're retaining, and stuff like that. Of course, not everyone's going to agree with me, but that's fine. But this is a suggestion. Just briefly about myself.
About myself, I am an experienced mentor and business coach at Tech Citizen Entrepreneurship Academy in London, which has over 8,000 members. My mentors and myself work with entrepreneurs, startups, and scale-ups to get them to the next level. We hosted over 500 talks, seminars, and workshops over the past 7 years. Our USP is always to produce quality business content, and our mentors each have 30+ years of experience in their field of expertise.
Okay, this is enough for myself. I think you can find information on me on LinkedIn or through other sources. I've got a large meetup group with 10,000 members in London and in Silicon Valley as well. What I want to say is that this presentation seminar is for B2B or B2C companies. And I already mentioned it could be for any stages. That's why it's quite a comprehensive seminar.
What are metrics and KPIs? A measure of performance of your company in terms of actions, activity, and results. It gives information if your company is doing well or underperforming. It is about providing insights in relation to your customers and tells you if you are achieving your goals. Who is responsible? Who is it for? The person responsible is in the marketing and business development department. It is for all stakeholders in the company and for reporting purposes. Do not delegate this to a third party like consultants or accountants. Why do you measure? To see where we are at, a snapshot, and to plan on a course to achieve a future goal, i.e. the strategy. When is it done? As soon as you start to obtain a flow of customer data. It should be done weekly. Do not wait for income or revenues. Review the model regularly, ideally every quarter, 3 months. This slide gives 5 reasons why you need to have KPIs. Note, the word KPIs and metrics are used interchangeably in this course. How is it done? Using digital marketing tools, CRM, data analytics, and spreadsheets. Obtain information from product development, sales and marketing, and data analytics. Seek professional advice at all times from the experts or specialists. Where is it done? Make this your radar screen for data from your dashboards and from your customer funnels. Which ones do we select? The selection criteria, 1, must be aligned with the goals of the organization in terms of strategy and milestones. 2, must provide value to the organization in terms of relevance and being measurable. 3, only select the key ones in terms of importance and say the top 3 that satisfies the needs of the organization. 4, it must be customer focused, so it accounts for the customer's behavior, action, experience, life cycle engagement and retention. 5, it's easy to break down into specific tasks. They must be actionable and you can execute on them. And 6, it must be benchmarked to industry standards in terms of taking into account your competitors and the markets you are in. Metrics that matter. These are the 27 metrics in green, M1 to M27. And they're grouped in 5 main headings in blue, MT1 to MT5, that will be covered in this course. MT1 is sales and monetization. MT2 is customers and traction. MT3 is financial management. MT4 is product experience, and MT5 is marketing.
Okay, there's a lot of KPIs and metrics in here. We won't be able to cover it all in 1 hour. So there's sort of, it goes like 1/3 is a bit fairly easy, 1/3 is average a be difficult, and the last third is more involved. If you have any questions as you go along, just to make it a bit more interactive, rather than me just talking or the recorder playing all the time, drop your questions in here. Then I'll stop once the video is finished, and I can answer the question as well. So I put a note here in the chat box. Ask your questions in here.
2. Core concepts. Execution. The course of action and the roadmap starts at the top. The directors and management must set the direction of the company, and the staff will take action to steer the company on the right path. This is mainly done by goal and objective setting. 3 levels of action required. Firstly, the directors need a strategy which needs to be put down as milestones and goals. For example, we want our sales target to increase by 500,000 next year from 1 million. The managers have to be tactical, and they write down their targets and operations. I need to delegate this to my team with deadlines and deliverables. And finally, the staff needs specific tasks to carry out via objectives and results. I will need to get this work done to deliver the results as required. Drivers and drilling down. What drives these KPIs? The input, you have drivers. For example, you say you want your company to grow, or you need more profits or cash. This is all put into a black box, and then the output we get from it is your KPIs. For example, the number of customers that have increased, or the number of referrals, or the increase in sales. The customer sales funnel, AARRR, which stands for acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. One of the important models you can use for understanding and executing metrics is with the AARRR customer funnel. The top of the funnel is large, and this indicates lots of interest from your potential customers towards your product and services. However, all customers must be targeted. The customer moves down this funnel slowly and shows more interest in your products or services. Eventually, the potential customer becomes a paying customer, and this results in revenue for your company. Find 2 more diagrams that explain the customer sales funnel.
If you're not familiar with the sales funnel, all it is, as you know, if you target 100 customers, not 100 of them are eventually going to convert and buy. Probably, they'll go through various stages where various people are going to drop out, and eventually at the bottom, you'll get about 10 or 15% that actually become your customers. And that's very important, is the conversion. But you can get conversion at every stage of the funnel. So you have to try and convert customers at every stage of the funnel.
Customer data collection and analysis. These are the points to be aware of. 1, the quality of customer is important. For example, their disposable income, the regular spending, their high basket spend, and how active the customer is. So do not just look for the volume or the number of customers. Second, low costs. You have to be resourceful in everything you do. always keep the marketing and operations and other costs as low as possible. 3, capital efficiency. For example, low interactions, having online services, and resource allocation. Good example is Facebook, where a few thousand staff manage several billion customer accounts. 4, little user friction. User experience, payments from users, and UX UI. Keep the friction to an absolute minimum. 5, conversion rates at every stage. Aim to get customer conversions at every stage of the funnel, from the top all the way down to the bottom. For example, conversion percentage, the speed and the time taken. Cohort and channel analysis. Number 6, look to gather customers in groups and segments. This will make your analysis simpler. For example, groups with something in common at various times and the changes that take place. And finally, regular testing. Always seek to obtain tests and feedback. For example, results and iteration and improvements.
So the first 15 minutes of the seminar is basically just an introduction. So you get a feel for what metrics are, why you need them, how, what. And now we'll start going into specific metrics. And I'm calling them M1, M2, M3, M4, all the way down. You can get up to 20 or 30. Of course, it'll start with fairly ones that you're familiar with, but just hang on in there, try and understand, ask me any questions, I'll stop and answer them. And it gets to medium complexity and then more and more involved. But I'm sure you all will be fine.
Section 3, Metrics Type 1, Sales and Monetization. Sales performance. This is one of the key metrics for all types of businesses. Every company must seek to improve its sales performance. For example, this can mean increased sales using metric M1 month on month. This is the monthly revenue MR. You must separate the recurring from the non-recurring revenues. Or M2, which is year on year. This is the annual revenue for the 12 months of the year. Each KPI or metric will be designated with an M prefix. A good business model to have is one where the revenues are recurring, for example, via subscription or software as a service that is used for business models, SaaS. You need to measure the M3, which is the monthly recurring revenues, MMR. This is not the same as M1, and in this case, the revenues must be recurring. Do not include any one-off or project fees in the above. Always separate out MRR from the other monthly revenues. There are several ways to increase customer revenues. Several examples are given here. For example, using greater sales volume, higher dollar margin, and including additional revenue streams as per this diagram. This slide on MMR has 3 sections. Firstly, the MMR description. Next, 5 types of MMR to track. And finally, ways to grow MMR that should be used in your business.
One thing investors like about the pricing model, I mean, as you appreciate in software, hardware, or any sales or service, there's many, many different types of pricing models. The thing all investors like is when you have something that's constantly recurring every month, because that gives the investor predictability. I mean, good example would be like Microsoft, where they get in millions of dollars every month just by having a license for their products. So if possible, not every business can do that, but if possible, if you can do that in a business, get your customers to pay on a monthly recurring way in one of your products, doesn't have to be all your products even, that'll give the investor some satisfaction.
Increasing revenue per customer. After you have segmented your customers into groups, then you can measure for each group separately. Metric 4, average order value, AOV. This is the total order value in dollars divided by the number of orders. This is referred to as the average basket size. Metric 5, ARPU, average revenue per user or customer. This is the total order value in dollars divided by the number of users or customers. One of the major ways of getting your customers to spend more is by increasing the M6, which is the upselling revenue. You sell the customers more valuable and expensive items. For this to occur, the customer has to climb the value ladder. By doing this, you convert your low value customers to high value ones. You must group or segment your customers into 3 groups. A is high value customers. Carefully tailor your offering to their unique needs. Be willing to invest in genuine value add products or services. Be very attentive to minor problems. B, medium value customers. Get them into your loyalty program. Get them to refer others by referrals. And finally, C, your low value customers. You reduce costs, ensure/accelerate payments. Prepaid plans can be great here. Ditto for subscription commerce. Section 4, Metrics Type 2, Customer and Traction. Quote from Paul Graham, VC and co-founder of Y Combinator. The best thing to measure the growth rate of is revenue. The next best for startups that aren't charging initially is active users. That's a reasonable proxy for revenue growth, because whenever the startup does start trying to make money, their revenues will probably be a constant multiple of active users. Eileen Lee, Cowboy Ventures. For most companies, month-on-month organic growth is a very useful metric, and depending on the base, 20% to 50%, month-on-month growth can be good. Retention, referral, and churn are all things we look at too. Measuring stickiness of your product. You can measure how interested your customers are in your product. This is called stickiness. The more times they visit and use your product in a day and in the month shows that you have a sticky product. There are two main measures. Metric 7, daily active users, DAU. This is how many users are using your product every day. Metric 8, monthly active users, MAU. This is how many users are using your product every month. Ideally, you want customers to use your product every day and every month. Here is more information on the daily active users, DAU, and the monthly active users, MAU.
If you can show the investor that your product is sticky, what do I mean by stickiness? And I put in the chat box, why is stickiness of the product important? You can give your answers if you want. Welcome to do that. And I'll read them out. But sticky means the customer is constantly attracted to your product. I mean, you can give me some examples of products also that you think are sticky. But a good example, I mean, I don't play any gaming, but you might know a lot of people are into gaming. They literally want to play it every day, and they want to play it several times a day. And then they'll continue playing it day in, day out, and every month, and then throughout the year. I mean, that is really, really sticky product. But then you have other products as well. For example, Zoom that I'm using now for business call. I know a lot of people use Zoom for private calls, you know. Instead of using Skype, they're using Zoom because and then of course every day I would have to use my Apple Mac, various software products in there, anything for design, you know, to do courses and stuff like that. So if you can demonstrate to the investor that you have something that's really the customer wants to use on a regular basis, that's excellent.
Customer retention. This is a measure of the percentage of customers that stay with your product or service over a period of time, say 1 year. So, if 90 out of 100 customers are still with you at the end of the year, then you have a retention rate of 90%. Metric 8, this is your customer retention rate, CRR. This is a measure of your customer loyalty. The goal is to keep your retention rate as high as possible. Here are two more slides that give more information on retention. Customer referrals. Your customers are the best marketing channel for your products and services. If they like using your products, then they will tell their family and friends. They will also talk and discuss about it on social media. You want your product to grow organically and virally. This means that the advertising/marketing spend of your product will be low, similar to building a brand. You need to find out the number of customers who came from existing customers. So metric 10 is number of referred customers, NRC. Simply ask a user when they're signing up, how did you hear about us?
Basically, churn is just a technical word, but churn is customers who sort of get onto your service, then after 1-2 months of using a service, they decide to drop out. It could be for various reasons. So retention is keeping the customer, and the churn is, unfortunately, customers leave. There could be a huge number of reasons why the customer churns. You could give me some of the reasons. I can see Satish Gaikwad has said stickiness is good for guaranteed future revenue streams. Perfect, absolutely perfect. If your customer keeps on using a service all the time, that becomes stickiness, and that's the same as retention. Stickiness is almost the same as retention, where the customer stays with you. But churn is, okay, the customer will stay for 1-2 months, then he decides, well, I don't need your product, I'm getting bored. Or there could be other reasons. Their credit card might run out of money. They might decide to travel, they might decide to move to another profession, stuff like that. So many complications in people's life. That churn, it's not an easy thing to know why there's so much churn.
Customer churn. These are your customers that leave and stop using a product or service. This is the opposite of customer retention, and it is also referred to as attrition. The customer could leave your business for several reasons, including switching to your customer's products, to your competitors' products or services. So you want this to be as low as possible. This is measured as metric 11, customer churn rate, CCR. Find more information on customer churn in the next 3 slides.
I've put a question in the chat box. You can give your own examples. Why would you leave the service of company? Why would you churn out to decide, if you've used them for 6 months or 6 years, you suddenly decide, I've had enough. It could be a restaurant, could be a hairdresser, could be a gym. For example, hairdresser, in my example, I'll just give my example. I've been going to the hairdresser for a long time, but during the COVID season, I didn't cut my hair for about 6 months. I decided to cut my hair recently. But I didn't want to go to the same hairdresser because they're very busy on the main high street. So I found the hairdresser was just on his own, and he did my hair perfectly well. And his salon was completely empty when I visited him. He took his own time, spent a lot of time with me. So I'm not going back to my old hairdresser just to be on the safe side. Nothing wrong with him. Just his salon is very busy. And I just, you see, so I'm just trying to give you, there could be various reasons for churn, not that the product is bad or service is bad. People have personal reasons for switching. So if you want to give me in the chat box some reasons why you have switched, that'd be great.
Section 5, metric type 3, financial management. Types of profit. There are 2 types of profit in finance. Metric 12 is a gross profit. This is the profit that appears at the top of financial statements. It is an indicator of specifically how profitable the product or services of a company are. M13, metric 13, net profit or margin. This is the profit that appears at the bottom of financial statements. it is an indicator of specifically how profitable the company as a whole is. You will hear the word profit replaced by margin or income. So for example, you will hear the terms gross margin or gross income, or net margin or net income. You need to understand the basics of financial statements. There are two types of profit, the gross profit and the net profit. Gross profit appears at the top of financial statements and is the revenues minus cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold will be explained in more detail later. The cost of goods sold is the direct cost of producing the item or product. For example, in a coffee shop selling roasted beans, this would be the cost of the coffee beans itself, and it will include the packaging and the distribution cost. The net profit appears at the bottom of financial statements and is the gross profit minus or less the expenses. The expenses are the general or the administrative expense of the company, such as rent, rates, utility bills, telephone calls, stationery, like that. Look at an example of a record company financial statements. The cost of goods sold will be the cost of the records and of packaging and distribution of those records as well. You can see the gross profit for the company is $1,000 to $5,000. Then there are expenses, general administration or operating expenses, such as staff cost, rent, utilities, supplies like stationery, interest and tax. The net profit is at the bottom of the statement. You can see the net profit is only a small amount of $45,000. This slide explains the difference between the gross profit and the net profit.
A couple of points. Alex has joined us. As I told you at the beginning, no need to take any notes, because I will give a recording of this full 1 hour session to everyone who has enrolled. About the churn, people have made a couple of comments. E has said because of financial constraints or location, possibly people can churn, right? Agree with that. And Satish has said, churn, I just want to be, churn is your customers leaving you after a period of time. Yeah, what it means. Due to poor customer services, absolutely, that happens all the time, people seem to get very annoyed if they don't have, customers seem to get very annoyed if they don't have good customer service. They might just decide, look, I've had enough. No new features, functionality, yes. If you do not keep on innovating all the time, people will just end up getting bored. Like a good example is gaming, or if they're watching the same thing on television all the time, they get bored. And better choices available, yes. I think what you're trying to say, Satish, better choice available, is the competitors start moving in. Competitors start bringing new products, new services, better things done better, faster, quicker. I think that's what you mean. And of course, it happens that your customers will switch to the competitor. That's like very, very normal. Now, this is not a course on accounting or finance, although I covered it very briefly. That could be covered in somewhere else, but we cover things like income statement just so that you have a very basic understanding of it. This is why I'm suggesting metrics and KPIs should be possibly in the marketing department.
Cost of goods sold. This slide explains the meaning of cost of goods sold, COGS, followed by a simple example. The example is of a clothing retailer. In this example, there are two items that are included in cost of goods sold: the cost of wholesale item as well as transportation and distribution from the wholesaler. The COGS to include in your business will depend on the type of company and the items being produced or the services being provided. So the cost of goods sold for a coffee shop will be different from that of a clothing retailer. Industry benchmarking. You must compare your company performance with other peers. This is called industry benchmarking. The first link is for the gross margin, and the second link is for the net margin. There is a big difference in the margins depending on the types of industry and on the types of goods or services each industry produces. For example, software net margins are high compared to other industries. Metric 14, cash flows. If it is in the negative, it means you're not going to have enough cash on hand to run your business according to your current trajectory. You'll need to make plans to borrow money and pay it off. If your net cash flow is positive, you can plan on having enough surplus on hand to pay off loans or save for a big investment. This slide gives more information on cash flow.
I put in the question box, if you have a company, doesn't necessarily mean a full-grown company, it could be a startup, could be anything. You need to actually regularly monitor the cash in the bank and also be able to do a bit of forecast, maybe 6 months ahead. But you have to think, I mean, you can put your answers in here. If you know that in 2 months or in 3 months, you're going to have a negative cash flow, meaning you'll be in overdraft, what steps of action could you take to mitigate that happening? Also remember, you might have to pay staff in 2 months. And if you find you're going to be in a negative cash flow situation, you won't have any money to pay the staff. So you can put in the chat box, how would you mitigate that risk? If you might have, some of you might have even come across a situation before. So do let me know and I'll read it out to all the attendees.
Types of costs. As described in the slide, there are two types of cost. Direct cost, shown on the left-hand side, and indirect cost, shown on the right-hand side. It is important you understand the differences between these two types of costs and how they affect your products and services and the industry you are in. Profits and ROI. The objective is A, to increase your sales and revenue, and B, decrease your costs. In the previous slide, you were shown the difference between the two types of costs. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see the difference in the two types of profit.
Okay. One other point is, because you're working on different types of companies, different products and stuff like that, I can see what you have to know for your business or your industry. What are the typical direct and indirect cost? For example, things like rent rates, staff cost would be like the general overheads, which would be same. You have the similar headings across all industries, but you might have specific costs that are tied into you. For example, a coffee shop will have the coffee as, you know, as one of its costs that's unique to it. So, or for example, if you're in a software, then you might have a particular developer cost. You might have a contractor cost. So you've got to really understand the direct and indirect cost of your industry. The other thing is, I think in a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a financial forecasting course if you want to attend that, where we look at all the costs or how you do financial forecast.
Your spending. Metric 15, the burn rate. This is your monthly expenditure on average. Metric 16, runway. The period over which you have sufficient finance reserves to keep you going, i.e., until you run out of cash. These two figures, the burn rate and the runway, are closely related. Here are more slides giving you information on the burn rate and runway.
When you are going for investment, you've got to know for, you know, when you take one round of investment, it lasts you for 18 months. That's the general idea, 1.5 years. You've got to know how much of that money you're going to spend every month. That is called the burn rate, how much you burn every month. And you should know that the money will last for about 18 months before your next round.
Company earnings. You will hear of the metrics that is well known as a measure of performance. Metric 17, EBITDA, EBITDA, which is, or which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It is a measure of the company's earnings or profitability. Its position on the income statement is after all expenses, but before interest and taxes. Note, we will not cover depreciation and amortization, which are balance sheet items, on this course. Here is a diagram that shows the EBITDA, EBITDA, but in this diagram they've also used EBIT, which is earnings before interest and tax. So you have the EBITDA and the EBIT. Section 6, Metrics Type 4, Product Experience. These metrics are specifically about the product and its relationship with the user. It encompasses all steps of the user journey and of the user engagement and experience. This metric has implications for both the front end, which is UX, UI, interface design, being user-friendly, and B, the back end, payments, speed of system, accuracy, There are key product metrics that must be measured regularly. Metric 18, product and feature usage. Track how often users log into their account, i.e. number of sessions per user. How often is the feature used and by which user? Metric 19, dwell time. The amount of time a user spends in a single session on average. Metric 20, the bounce rate. The percentage of users who visit a page but do nothing and leave immediately. This is good for measuring the performance of specific landing pages, but should not be used to measure site-wide bounce rates. Metric 21, organic versus paid traffic. This will help you make decisions about your marketing campaigns and spend. Metric 22, number of sessions per user. How often users come back and use the site. Track this by the number of logins or site visits. Metric 23, time per session. How much time users spend per session. And metric 24, number of key user actions per session. First, select the specific user action that is important to you. For example, clicks on a like or share button. Then track this action over each session. It shows how users interact with the features and options.
Okay, I'll stop the webinar at this point. We've covered about 24 metrics in a bit of detail. There's still a lot more to go. It's a 1-hour course. I'm giving a special discount in the chat box if anyone wants a discount, and I'll email you all with all the details later of the video as well in case you missed the session. Now I will stay for another 10-15 minutes. If you'll have any questions to ask me, I'm quite happy in the chat box. Just put a question in and I'll shout out the question to everyone and I'll answer it as well so everyone can hear what the question is and the answer. If you'll have more specific questions, you can always join the course on Udemy. It's a recording of a Udemy course and I can answer specific questions there as well. So I'll wait here for another 10-15 minutes. Please go ahead, drop your question in the chat box. Yes, Satish, it says, thanks Osmond for an interesting session. Much appreciated. Hope to connect and speak soon. Definitely, please connect to me on LinkedIn. I've got your details as well, Satish. Hope you have a nice evening. And to everyone as well. I'll be here for another 10-15 minutes. Any more questions, please ask. Okay, E says, thanks, Osmond. Very informative as always. Really appreciate that, E. Of course, I'm always welcome. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. That's what I'm here for.